Okay, I think we're live. Okay, so
Great.
today, thank you so much, Dada, for being here with me. I mean, I watched somehow, came across one of the TED Talks, and you were in there, and you were funny at the same time, you know, talking about consciousness. So I thought, okay, I'll just ask him if he is willing to be on my little YouTube channel.
I'm very happy to. Thanks for inviting me. I'm happy
Thank
to
you
be.
so much. And for you to have a page, you know, I'm a person that has a YouTube page as well, and I get a lot of questions in the inbox. So
Okay.
My first question is, what is the most common question that you get in your inbox?
I want people ask me, they want to learn meditation. How do I learn meditation? I think that's the most common one.
Okay,
Yeah.
because you're a meditation teacher.
Because
All
I'm a
right.
meditation teacher, and people are wanting to learn meditation more and more these days.
Yeah.
So I actually have quite a job kind of connecting people to teachers around the world. You know, that's one of the things I have to do every day. I just kind of try to connect people to their nearest teacher.
And okay, let me just rephrase my first question again. What would you think is the biggest common pain of the people in this era?
I think lack of connection, feeling of connection. Because even though we have social media, say for example, it's supposed to make us feel more connected. It makes us feel more connected to people that are remote, far away from us, but it makes us feel less connected to our immediate surroundings. So I think we have a crisis now that social media is taking us away from our immediate reality, and in particular, our inner reality, connecting with our inner selves.
Yeah, I totally feel that.
Meditation means looking within. So we have to look within. We have to try to make a connection with our inner selves in order to really feel connected in the deepest sense of the term, to feel that deepest connection. So that's what meditation is. So that's why we should practice meditation. But at the same time, we have so many distractions that are taking us away from that.
Yeah.
And it's this lack of feeling of connection that is making people feel, you know, anxious and depressed, and you know, there's so many different social problems due to that lack of connection.
Yeah, I mean, as I have a few of the followers of my content, and the reason the first question that I asked you was what was the most common question you get was because one of the most common questions that I get in my inbox is like, what should I do? I have depression. You know, a lot of anxiety and depression problems. But I think in Thailand, going to the doctors, psychiatrists is not something that is very common. That's why they tend to come and like ask for people. I'm not sure why, but all of my friends that are doing online content get this kind of messages.
Because it's endemic now in society. I believe there are two things that have been missing in our education and in our upbringing, particularly in the West. I'm not so sure about Thailand and Asia. I don't think. I think particularly in the West, we've been missing, first of all, ethical values. So people doing the right thing. You know, in the last 50 or 100 years or so, we've been encouraged to be selfish. We've been encouraged to be individualistic and to think only for ourselves. Of course, we realize now that that's not right. That we should always do the right thing and try to help people and share as much as we can. And that is a key to our own happiness and fulfillment. But that's what we've been taught. So we need ethical values, a strong moral base to our lives.
Yeah.
And we also need a proper spiritual practice, which means basically looking within ourselves. It doesn't matter what religion it is, regardless of religion or culture or upbringing or ethnic background or anything like that. It's the same for all of us. We need to look within ourselves and really try to find a deep sense of connection within ourselves. The more we find that deep sense of connection within ourselves, the more we will find a stronger sense of connection to others as well. So these are the two things that I believe we've been missing, and that's why people are so depressed and anxious and feeling and unfulfilled and feeling a lack of connection in their lives and a lack of purpose. So we need that sense of purpose, that we have as well as all the secondary purposes in our lives, like, all the different things we have to do every day to look after ourselves and our family and do the best we can for our community and our society and for a better world going forward, for a better world. Apart from all those things, we need to fulfill our primary purpose. We need to have a strong sense of we have a mission in our lives, and that mission is to know ourselves, to connect with our inner selves, to realize ourselves in the deepest sense of the term. So we need that sense of purpose, and we need and we need that a real spiritual practice in order to fulfill that purpose, that primary purpose.
Yeah. And when you talk about knowing ourselves, connecting within ourselves, can it only be achieved through meditation, or is there any other ways, do you think?
Well, that's what meditation means. I mean, there are different types of meditation, and some of them are doing that and some of them are not. Some of them are just they're using the word meditation for a different thing. But meditation essentially means to connect with to center yourself on your inner self, to connect with yourself, to look within. The word meditation means look within and find your inner self, your center. So if you're doing that, there are different types of meditations in different traditions, Buddhist and Hindu, and even Christian. Christian mystics also have been meditating. But I believe that the essential practice is the same, and it stems right back to the beginnings of yoga, which were about 7,000 years ago, 7 to 10,000 years ago. So this practice of yoga, I feel, is the essential practice of all people in all religions, and it means, because yoga means to unify, to unify. The English word yoke, for example, yoke comes from yoga. So it means to really find a deeper sense of connection with your inner self, to unify your individual sense of self with your inner sense of self, your deeper sense of self. We all have an individual sense of self. My name is so-and-so. This is what I do. This is where I live. This is my family. These are my friends. This is my community. We all have that individual sense of self, but we all also have a deeper sense of self, which is common to all of us. So in order to fulfill ourselves, we need to identify ourselves with that deeper sense of self, which is our common self, the greater self, the infinite self. The infinite consciousness. Our own consciousness is part of the infinite consciousness, not only part of the infinite consciousness, but one with the infinite consciousness. So that's why we're unfulfilled. That's why we're searching. That's why we're seeking. That's why we always want more, because we're looking for that greater sense of identity, greater sense of self and fulfillment. Like a wave. I always use this analogy because it's very apt, very appropriate. A wave is an individual but it's one with the sea.
Yeah.
The wave, every wave on top of the sea is an individual for a period of time. It's a transitory phenomenon. It only exists for temporarily.
Mm.
But as long as it exists, it's also one with the sea, right? Same with us. We're existing for a certain period of time, but at the same time, we're one with the greater existence, the absolute existence. Mm.
That's a great analogy. Very,
Yeah,
very clear.
great analogy. Yeah, that's why I always use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you're saying, okay, what we're missing right now is ethical value and spiritual practice.
Mm.
Why do you think not more people are aware of it or practicing it when this is quite clear?
Well, I think people are subconsciously, everybody is wanting it.
Mm.
So for example, if someone does something wrong, they know deep within themselves that they've done something wrong, and even though they might try to convince themselves consciously that it was the right thing to do, or under the circumstances or whatever, they make excuses for what they did. Subconsciously, they know. Your conscience tells you what is right and what is wrong.
Yeah.
So similarly, we may not have the tools to give us what we want, but we know what we want deep down inside. It's just that due to our upbringing, because what we're taught when we grow up is very strong. If we're not taught a proper ethical values and spiritual practice when we're young, we don't think that we're missing anything consciously. We don't think that we're missing anything in our lives, and we just go along with what we've been taught. But deep down inside, we feel there's something missing.
Mm-hmm.
So, in answer to your question, I think it's a matter of what we're taught. We have to be taught the right way, especially with spiritual practice, because spiritual practice is the process of discovering ourselves. And this is everything else we can learn relatively easily. We can even teach ourselves, whether it's cooking or gardening or mechanics or engineering or whatever it is. Those things are relatively easy to know what to do, because there's a certain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, follow these steps and you're there. But particularly with spiritual practice, which is the process of transcending the mind. All these other things are within the mind. You use your mind to do all the things that we have to do in our lives. But spiritual practice is it's the only thing that we have to do, which is a matter of transcending the mind rather than just using the mind to think within itself. We have to use the mind to transcend itself. There's a very a bizarre concept, So especially with that, we need the proper teachings, we need the proper guidance, because we haven't been there before. This is something new to us. We're trying to achieve something which is completely beyond the scope of what we've ever done before. So particularly with this, we need proper guidance and proper teachings, and we haven't had those up till now. That's why we haven't had a proper emphasis on ethical practice and system, and also spiritual practice and system. But our guru, the guru of Ananda Marga, for example, he has given us all those things. So the meditation, the moral principles, and the meditation, and all the other parts of the spiritual practice that we as meditation teachers in Ananda Marga teach. We teach the proper system, the proper spiritual practice that can really take us to that state of fulfillment that we're all looking for.
I'm a Buddhist in Thailand, and my husband's a Christian. and he's Norwegian. And sometimes I try to like explain to him or almost like convince him that you should meditate, you should try this and that. And some of the concept is so far reach to him. I think he's trying to avoid it. Like sometimes I would listen to a Dharma talk and say like, this body is not ours, things like that. And I would say to him that, why would you care? This body is not ours. And he would go, why is it not mine? and you as a Westerner, Australian, what do you think about meditation is the most challenging to understand growing up in a Western culture?
Well, first of all, let me just address a couple of things that you said there. You said that your husband says that okay, why would I think that my body is not mine? Right. Well, you can say to him, yes, your body is yours. It is. It's true. But it's just a temporary phenomenon. Yeah. It's temporary. It's relative. It changes. Your body is all continually changing. If you look at a photo of yourself 5 or 10 or 15 years ago, it will be different to what you are now. If you look at yourself in the mirror now, and you look at yourself in the mirror in 10 years' time, you're going to see something different. The only reason you don't see anything, you don't notice it, is because you look at yourself in the mirror every day, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so, and it's so uncontrollable.
This world is a temporary, a transient, a relative phenomenon existing within the absolute reality. So the absolute reality it's like that analogy of the sea, the wave in the sea again. The waves are transitory relative phenomena existing within the absolute reality of the sea. The sea doesn't change, but the waves change. So that's the first thing. And also, your husband is Christian, right?
Yeah.
So you can tell him that many Christian mystics have meditated. In fact, there's a lot of evidence that Jesus himself meditated and practiced meditation. Yeah, sure. He was in India for many years, the lost years. There's a lot of evidence that Jesus was a Buddhist tantric in India. That's mind-blowing, right? So you two have a connection here. You're Buddhist and he's Christian. You have this connection that Jesus was a Buddhist tantric in India, and there's evidence that he died in India also. That he didn't die on the cross, and he went back to India afterwards, and his grave is in Kashmir. And there's other Christian mystics also that have meditated, like Saint John of the Cross and Saint Francis of Assisi, and different. So there has been a tradition of meditation in Christianity as well. Now, can you remind me of what was the question you asked before I said all this?
My question was, growing up in Western culture, as you.
Oh yeah, right. Why is it hard to accept meditation in Western culture?
Yeah, or what is the most challenging concept of Eastern philosophy found? Yeah.
Because I think it is because in Western religion and upbringing, it's a very dualistic concept. All the Semitic religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, the concept is dualistic in that there is God and there is you and there is God. There are two things. And your duty is to worship God or love God or fear, or even the fear God. There's this concept of fearing God is a very big thing in that Western kind of Semitic religion tradition kind of thing. Whereas the Eastern concept is more monistic. It's more that we are one with God, that everything is one. There's that joke, the Buddhist goes into the pizza shop and says, "Make me one with everything." Someone told that joke to the Dalai Lama an Australian reporter told that joke to the Dalai Lama. I saw the video and it was very awkward because the Dalai Lama didn't get it. But Eastern philosophy and religion is very monist, is very one with everything is one. Everybody, we are all one, and we are one with God. God, our purpose is to realize our oneness, which is true, which is what I believe. That's what our purpose is to realize our oneness with God and everybody and everything else. Everything, the entire universe is an expression of the one infinite universal consciousness, the greater consciousness, God, whatever you want to call it. So I believe that's the difficulty with Western, with people that have been brought up with a Western concept or religions, that this concept of oneness, because in the West there's always been this concept of not oneness but duality. So I think people that have been brought up in the East have an easier find it easier to reconcile themselves with the concept of becoming one, of finding the oneness in everything. Whereas people in the West have a more difficult time of doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit surprised when there were so much of the news that people protesting wearing masks during COVID in the Western countries. Like, as in Thailand, everybody, like, there were no question asked, there were no protests. Everybody was happy to wear masks to protect ourselves as unit, like we help each other. So I think what you were talking about was kind of clear to me in that sense, that it was easy for us to come together as one.
Yes, and what goes along with what I just said is, of course, is, as you just intimated, that there is a stronger sense of sharing and collective good in the East, whereas that's not so strong in the West. In the West, there's a stronger sense of individualism and individual good. Of course, there should be a balance between the individual welfare and the collective welfare, but certainly the individual welfare should not take precedent to the collective welfare. The collective welfare is more important than individual welfare, and that's something that I really love and respect about the East, that people are more aware of collective welfare and place it higher than their own individual welfare. Of course, ideally there should be both individual welfare and collective welfare, but we say in yoga that if there is ever a conflict between individual welfare and collective welfare, then collective welfare should take priority. But this is a concept which is, because the West has been very individualistic and very oriented, people have. There's a very strong culture of selfishness in the West rather than selflessness. There's more of a culture of selflessness in the East and more of a culture of selfishness in the West. So I think people are realizing in Western society, people are realizing now that that's not right. To be happy, to truly be happy. Of course, you can get individual pleasure temporarily in the meantime, but to truly be happy in the real sense of the term, we have to share, we have to give rather than take. There's a saying that it's the giving rather than the taking that's going to make the difference, So so now people are realizing that it's the giving rather than the taking. Rather than having something for yourself, it's giving of yourself that's really going to make you happy and fulfilled. So we're kind of coming around to that now in the West, where that's one way in which the West has to catch up with the East, because the East has had that feeling of sharing and giving and loving all more in the past, and the West is catching up with that now.
I think the East is somehow catching up with the West in terms of individualistic and money driven. I think
You're saying that the East is going the other way.
Yeah, we're going the other way. That's very obvious to me. At least
stop. Don't go too far that way.
I'm interviewing you. I hope more people are watching. Because I think that's the direction that I see people talk about, what I want. This is, it's all about me.
But there should be a balance.
Yeah.
There should be a balance. Of course, we have to look after ourselves. We have to look after our own individual existence, our own health and well-being, and the health and well-being of our family and everything like that. Of course, we need that, but but there has to be a balance between that and the collective welfare as well. So we need a balance between the self and the society, the individual and the collective.
And do you think it'll happen naturally if
Yes.
a growing, coming towards looking within ourselves? Just 1 second.
No problem. Yeah.
Hello, ค่ะพี่ค่ะได้เดี๋ยวพี่จะมาประมาณกี่โมงคะโอเคเดี๋ยวหนูโทรกลับได้ไหมคะเพราะว่าพอดีหนูติดงานอยู่เดี๋ยวหนูโทรกลับค่ะแป๊บนึงค่ะ Sorry about that.
No problem. Yes, that's happening naturally. That's happening as in the natural course of events. That's happening in the evolution, because now humanity on this planet, we're evolving very fast, and everybody, whether we're from the East or the West, we're all evolving together, and we're coming to these great truths, these great realizations that we need to have a balance in our lives, and we need to take care of ourselves and also everybody else, and at the same time that we're doing all the other things in our lives, we also need to focus on our own sense of self and making a real connection to our self, our inner selves, the greater self within us all. And that's the real spiritual practice that people all around the world are going to adopt in the future. It doesn't matter what religion we're from, it doesn't matter what culture we're from, what country, whatever, we're all going to be doing the same thing. This is the way of the future. We're in a paradigm shift now. Regardless of the different cultures that we live in, we're all going to be looking within ourselves, because that's our destiny, is to find our inner selves, and we have to do that. That's inevitable. That we all do that sooner or later. It's just a question of time. Yeah. So it's happening. We're in the middle of a great paradigm shift on this planet, and the consciousness, our individual consciousness and our collective consciousness is evolving very fast.
Yeah. Do you think with the internet, it does something to escalate, like fast forward things spiritually? Do you think it does something to that?
In a way, it does. It has a double edge to it. It's like a sword, that saying, double-edged sword. It has the internet has some negative aspects as well, of course. It's very distracting, and it takes up too much of our time and things like that. But at the same time, it is very useful in sharing ideas and concepts, and it is being instrumental in accelerating the spread of ideas, the spread of spirituality around the world, and the concept that we're all one family. And it instills that. It helps to instill that concept that we're all one family. It makes the world smaller. It brings us closer together. Although it may bring us further away from the people that are closest to us, at least it brings us closer to the people that are further away from us.
Like you're doing right now, like.
Yeah.
It's
we
true.
wouldn't be able to be having this conversation if it wasn't for the internet. So there's good and bad and everything, of course.
Right, because I find that it is because of the internet that I realize so easily the collective energy of the world. I can see news from Afghanistan, watched America with Trump and all of that. And before, without the internet, I would just know what's happening where I am. But now I can see that, okay, the energy, like the collective energy is like this, and it feels like it's going to soon. Somehow it feels like we're reaching the peak of something, and it's gonna have to kind of calm down soon. It's like when people hit the worst panic attack right now, and we need to all like see the doctors.
Well, I think you're right in saying that we're reaching the peak of something, and I believe it's that we have information overload.
Yeah.
In general. And we're reaching the threshold of our capacity to deal with all the information that's coming to us.
Yeah.
So sooner or later, that information kind of paradigm is going to change into more of a knowledge paradigm.
Right.
We're going from information to knowledge.
Wow.
So
and what's the difference between the two?
Sorry?
And what's the difference between information and knowledge?
So information is
data.
What my definition of information is that it's something that the mind can think about. And knowledge is real knowledge is going beyond that, going beyond the mind. So going into spirituality, knowledge is spirituality.
Yeah.
Is deeper values, deeper concepts, and deeper realizations than just information. You can only think about information. It may give you a certain amount of interest and inspiration and entertainment or whatever, but it can't take you into that deeper realm of real knowledge, true knowledge, which is the realm of spiritual realization, the realm of bliss. We can experience pleasure and limited happiness within the realm of information, the types of things. If we watch a movie or something, it may give us a certain amount of pleasure or happiness for a certain amount of time. But if we also take the time out in our lives to go deeper within ourselves and really delve into the realm of true knowledge, deep knowledge, then we will experience a greater happiness, infinite happiness, bliss. Because the essence of infinite consciousness, the infinite consciousness within us all, the infinite consciousness within which we are all existing, is infinite happiness. The essence of infinite consciousness is infinite happiness. So the more we can connect, the more we can use the information in our lives for a greater good, to help others, also to help ourselves, to go deep within ourselves, then the more we can experience true happiness, infinite happiness, bliss.
Yeah, but what you say, it seems like it will bring some sort of sense of safety. Because I think people are all over the place right now because they don't feel safe. I don't know why that is, but when you talk about, if you reach to that point where you feel one with everything, I think the fear would probably disappear. This is just a concept that I'm thinking. Of course, it's just.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Of course, the fear will disappear because if it's only logical. If you feel that if you feel a sense of connection and oneness with everyone else and everything else, you're not going to be afraid of anyone or anything. Because you're connected, you feel a sense of oneness. The more you feel a sense of oneness, why would you be afraid of yourself? If you feel everything is one with yourself, you won't be afraid of anything because you wouldn't be afraid of yourself, right?
Right. Yeah. I think
this is one of the great advantages of spirituality. Of the more you can feel a spiritual connection within yourself, the less anxious, the less depressed, and the less fearful you will also become.
Because I heard that within 10 years, mental problem is going to be number one sickness in the world. Right now, I think it's heart disease, but within 10 years, psychological is going to top it.
That may be the projected prediction, but I'm optimistic. I would like to think that earlier than 10 years, people will realize that, or rather, should I say that we will go through this threshold of information overload.
Yeah.
And people will have more tools at their hands to go deep within themselves, and they will practice spirituality and practice meditation, and so mental illness will drop off.
Wow,
I think it will drop off. It's only a matter of time, hopefully within 10 years, hopefully a lot earlier than that. But I think that may be the projection, but I think what will actually happen is we'll hit this we'll go over this tipping point. We're heading towards a tipping point, a threshold in our evolution where we will realize that we need to be knowledge-based rather than information-based. Information is all well and good. We need information, but we need to put the priority on knowledge rather than information. And as soon as people know that, as soon as people realize that, as soon as it's taught to people, as soon as people are brought up in that way, in that paradigm, a knowledge-based paradigm rather than an information-based paradigm, then mental illness will drop off. Because mental illness is due to, of course, there are always exceptions, but mostly it's due to this anxiety and fear and depression about our current state of affairs, this current state of affairs of the world and the current state of affairs of our individual lives, because we don't have a proper spiritual practice in our lives, and we don't have proper ethical values that we're living by. Once we have those proper ethical values and proper spiritual practice in our lives, and the more we have them in our lives, the more people that are practicing these things, and the more that these are within our society, instilled within our education and upbringing and in our whole society, the more we have those, the less we will have the problems of mental illness and associated things.
Yeah. Now that you mentioned
that may be the projection that in 10 years' time mental illness will be, but I would like to think that it will drop off.
Yeah, you have the positive projection.
Yeah. Right.
When you mention ethical, sometimes I talk to people and people say, "What's ethical anymore?" Like we got to the point we don't even know what's ethical anymore, and everything is gray area. There's no white anymore. We don't know what's white. We don't know what's black. We just know that it's gray. It's people have their own reasons and make everything gray. What's your thought on that?
Well, there is this it's a bit of a crazy concept that we have at the moment, that there's no real right and there's no real wrong, and everything is according to, anyone can say anything and it's true for them. If it's true for them, then it's also a kind of a truth. But that's also not right. Actually, there is right and there is wrong, and we all know what that is. I mean, it's not an absolute. Yeah. It's relative according to each and every situation. But in each and every situation, we all know what is the right thing to do and what is the wrong thing to do. We can convince ourselves that if we do the wrong thing, then it's the right thing. We can make excuses that if we do the wrong thing, then it's the right thing. But within ourselves, we know because we all have a conscience. Our conscience tells us what is right and what is wrong. So ethics, real ethics or real morality means that you try to always do the right thing in any given circumstance. So, of course, I could go into detail about the different, non-harm and non-stealing and always trying to, tell the truth and things like that. But those are relative as well. For example, non-harm. Okay. If someone attacks you or attacks someone else that you're witness to,
Right.
then you have the obligation to defend yourself or to defend others, or that are to. So you may have to use harm in order to do a greater harm, in order to do a greater good, and
Right.
in order to avoid a greater harm, you may have to use harm in order to defend yourself or others.
Yeah.
So it's not a black and white concept. The concept is that we should do the least harm as possible, but that may involve using harm in order to defend others from harm.
Right.
But we know what is the right thing to do. For example, if we were standing in the street and somebody came and attacked us, we know that the right thing to do is to defend ourselves. Or if somebody was standing next to us and somebody came and attacked them, we know that the right thing to do would be to try to help that person that's been attacked, right? But we have this crazy situation now where in many countries the law is if you harm someone, regardless of somebody told me the other day that the law is if somebody comes into your house, invades your house, to rob you, to burgle your house or whatever, and you attack them, you would be liable in the courts to assault charges.
So the lawmaker has not had a burglar in the house. That's probably why.
Yeah.
The lawmaker hasn't had
that nowadays we can't, anyway, I don't want to go into that, but we have some absurd laws that are, so the point that I want to make is that, and also with truthfulness as well. Truthfulness, of course, is important, but we all know that there are circumstances where telling the truth would cause more harm than telling a white lie. So that's also not black and white. There's a certain
avoid saying anything at all.
Sorry.
If I think I had to lie, sometimes I would just not say anything at all, or just something that I don't have to lie.
Well, that would be better than saying something which may be true but which may be harmful at the same time. Like, for example, I think it was the Buddha that said that there are three priorities when you say something. The third priority is that it's sweet sounding, that you have sweet sounding words. That's the third priority. The second priority is that it's true, that your words are true. That's only the second priority, that your words are true. The first priority is that your words are helpful to others.
Yeah.
So that's the that's the gradation that I go by, that we go by in yoga. Okay, your words shall be sweet sounding. That's the third priority. True, that's the second priority, but helpful is the first priority. Most helpful.
I imagine, I'm trying to think in a situation where my friend say, do you like my new haircut? And if I didn't, I just find it ugly, for instance, I would say, I like your total look. I would say anything about the hair.
But for example, with something like that, which is, relatively inconsequential, there's nothing wrong with saying, yes, I love your hair. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with saying that, because you're making that person feel good. Yeah.
But that's lying. If I was to say, I love your hair when I don't.
But it may be lying, but it's not the kind of lie that causes harm to others. It's the kind of lie that helps others. You're helping her. You're making her feel good. Think about what the Buddha said. Buddha said that your words should be helpful to others. So if it's inconsequential to the society, it's not going to cause any harm to the society if you tell her that you love her hair, even if you don't. So that's what I'm talking about. It's that kind of thing. We don't always have to use words that are exactly true, but when there is a consequence to the society and to others' well-being, we should use the truth. But the point is that we should use words that have a positive effect on others and the society.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They may or may not be exactly true, but they should be helpful. They should be helpful to others in the society. That's the first priority. Yeah.
They should be helpful. All right. So I think we're on ethical.
So regarding ethics, there is an absolute, but it's not black and white. It differs in every circumstance. It will differ, but your conscience will tell us. It will tell you. Our conscience will tell us what is the right thing to do. You have to listen to your conscience.
Right.
Like, for example, many people have become rich by doing the wrong thing, right?
Right.
And they can't sleep at night because their conscience is biting them, right? Their conscience. If you don't do the right thing, your conscience will bite you, and they're saying that you won't be able to sleep at night. But that's the least of your problems. It means that you won't be at ease with yourself. The reason why you can't sleep at night if you do something wrong is because you're not at ease with yourself. Your conscience is biting you. So it's important not only for others, but also for yourself to try to do the right thing. It may be the most difficult thing to do at the time. It may be the thing which is hardest for you to do because it may have immediate negative consequences against your health and well-being. It may mean that you lose money or that you have to put yourself out. It may be inconvenient or it may be painful for you at the time, but at least you maintain your conscience. Your conscience is satisfied.
See, I think to reach to that point where you always choose to do the right thing instead of what's good for you at the time, it seems almost to me that you have to realize that it is one of the priorities of yours to spiritual priority to be able to choose that. If you're not aware that there's the spirituality path, then
yes, you're right. Not only that, but if you are aware that there are always consequences, that the law of karma, that everything will come back to you in the way that you put it out into the world.
Right.
So if people are aware that whatever they do will come back to them in some way or another, if you do good, you'll get good. If you do bad, you'll get bad. Then that also helps to keep things in perspective. But you're right. It is difficult to always do the right thing. We have to try, though. We have to try more and more and more. The more we try, the more we will be able to do it. And the more we do it, the more good we will get coming back to us. So it will get easier as time goes on. But we have to try. From now on, we have to try to do the right thing as much as we can. The more we can do that, the easier it'll get for us, and the easier our lives will get for us, because what we're putting out, we're getting back. And eventually what comes around goes around. It will come back to you. So the more good you put out, the more good you will eventually get back to you, and it will make your life easier and easier and easier. And as you intimated what you said earlier, it's also important as part of our spiritual practice, as part of our spiritual lifestyle.
Yeah, it is. It seems easier. I think I only just have spiritual purpose like a year or two ago, and for me to choose to doing the right thing it makes sense. But before, it just doesn't make sense. Like this is an obvious gain, so I'll just go for that. So I think that I agree with you. I think an easier concept, you don't even have to have spiritual purpose, but easier concept is the law of karma, the physics, the cause and effect. Yeah. And if you believe that, then you can always choose the right as well.
Right. And even if you don't believe that, go with your conscience, and your conscience will always tell you the right
But
thing.
that's the thing, people are disconnected with that conscience.
Yeah, that's true. We have to connect with our conscience. We have to, right, it's true that many things are disconnecting us from our conscience, and not only from our higher purpose, but from our conscience as well. So it's true. We have to get more connected with our higher purpose as well as with our conscience. They go together, of course.
So that brings us back.
There are many non-spiritual people. There are many atheists that live very ethical lives also, because they go by their conscience. They know what is the right thing to do. So even though they don't consciously have a kind of a spiritual outlook, they're still living ethical lives, or relatively ethical lives, because they're in touch with their conscience.
Yeah, yesterday I was just watching YouTube, Ricky Gervais, 60 Minutes. He's a famous comedian, right?
Who?
The office guy, Ricky Gervais.
Ricky Gervais. Yeah, I know Ricky Gervais.
And he's an atheist, and in 60 Minutes, he was contemplating death. Like, he would go for a walk in graveyards, and also he said he's very into honesty, like the concept of truth, of honesty right now. So he maybe is atheist, but yeah, he's things that he talks about very.
Yeah, he like many atheists, especially Western atheists, actually, they're not really, well, they may or may not be, but many of them are not actually atheists. They say they are, but they're not. They still have a sense of a greater good. They still have they're actually, a lot of them are reacted against the Western concept of God.
Mm-hmm.
The concept of the fearful God, the God with the grey beard sitting on a cloud in the sky, meting out punishment kind of God. That kind of, they're still the heaven and hell kind of God. If you don't do the right thing, you'll go to hell forever, which is the worst concept that's ever been. It's a crime that this concept of going to hell forever was ever. Propagated amongst people. It was propagated to oppress people, to get them to do, anyway. So a lot of them are reacted against this Christian concept, this Western concept of God, but they still have a deeper sense of a deep sense of right and wrong, and a deep sense of if not consciously, at least subconsciously, a deeper sense of self. Mm-hmm. So for example, with Ricky Gervais, he's going through. You said that he has this deep sense of honesty now. That's good, and he also has a deep sense of he loves animals. A deep sense of
right.
Caring for animals as well. Sorry?
Contemplating death that he does is very Buddhist concept.
Well, his last series, I can't remember what it's called.
After Death.
After Death.
Yeah.
After Death is very good, actually, and it dwells on that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So now that I think we both agree that we are losing connections with ourselves, and meditation is a vehicle to that.
Yeah, we've been losing connection with ourselves, but I like to think that from this moment on, we're going to gain connection with ourselves. Right.
Let's hope that. Thank you so much, Dada.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for talking to me. I really enjoyed talking to you.
So much fun talking to you, and I hope we can talk again, chat again.
Okay.
Thank you, Dada, for the live today. Yeah. So much knowledge. May I say so much information that I got, but knowledge is something personal.
Right. So now we have to use that information in order to gain not real knowledge.
Yeah.
if you like, I can send you some. How are you going to broadcast this? Are you going
This is
to?
a broadcast right now on my YouTube channel, so I'm going to send you the link.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I can send you some links where people can learn meditation if they want. If you want me to do that, I can do.
Yeah. Yes. Please.
I'll send them to you anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you. Dada.
Thanks.
Good night.
Take care.
Namaskara.
Namaskar. สวัสดี
สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีครับ